Welcome to Straight Talk with my OBMD podcast. Join me for a bi-weekly discussion on topics most relevant to women's health today. We are your source for medically accurate, real-world advice and all things related to your health and well-being as a woman. From menses to menopause, we've got you covered. I'm your host, Dr. Dana Smith, a fully practicing, board-certified OBGYN physician with close to 20 years experience. I am also the founder of the website that is 100% dedicated to women's health, myobmd.org. At myobmd.org, we write on all aspects related to women's health. Listen to our podcast, visit our website, subscribe to our newsletter, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, myobmd.org. So tell us more about if you were, let's say I came to you as a patient and we are designing, hey, I'm just kind of a little feeling like I want to eat healthier and I want to focus on my mental health and well-being in particular. How would one get started on that journey?
So first, I always have to know, where are you currently? Like, what are you eating currently? What foods do you like? And go from there. So most of the time when I talk to people, their breakfast consists of like a pastry or one of those croissants with sausage or eggs, something like that. And so we try to really focus on adding in fresh fruits and vegetables to every single meal. So a lot of people are afraid sometimes when they come and talk to me after they've heard. But I was like, no, we're going to work with what you like. And so I tell them we're never going to take away something initially. We want to just add in stuff. And so that's where we get the adding in of the fruits and vegetables at every single meal. Because if we add in more leafy greens, more fiber, then the mood will actually increase. Okay, so we can actually work with that. Then after you've done that, we'll talk about taking away some of the foods that you don't necessarily need. But people are always thinking negatively when they talk about healthy eating, like, oh, I got to give up this, I got to give up that. And so I like to start out with a positive note. So that way they don't feel like they have to give up everything. And then it's kind of look for the word, a self cycle. Like once you feel better, you'll eat better. Once you eat better, you'll feel better. And it just continues on from there. And people are like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to keep this up. But like I said, when I notice, certain times that I'm starting to feel down, and that's what I tell my patients to look for and clients to look for, that if you start to notice a decrease in the way you're feeling, go back and say, oh, what did I actually eat in the last few days? And you'll see that. Because sometimes it's like subtle changes, and if you're not aware, then you're not going to actually notice it. But we really work that really hard on actually having you aware, like the dietitian did for us when I went through her program to actually learn how to do that. And people are usually more successful when they're actually aware. They're like, oh yes, I went back to eating, that pastry in the morning, or to drinking my $7 coffees with all that sugar and stuff in there. I was like, this is just sugar. This is not coffee. I'm not a real coffee person anyway. But when I would go to those places, I'm like, no wonder people are like slurping these up. This is just sugar.
Right. The sugar addiction. The caffeine and the sugar. You don't know which one is more addictive, the sugar or the caffeine.
Right. Yes. But yeah, as long as people are aware of how they're feeling before, during, and then after, they're usually successful. So just adding in fruits and vegetables at every single meal, it'll help with so many things that people just don't realize. And once they get that, they're just like, oh, I didn't realize how bad I felt till I felt better. I hear that a lot, and how quickly it can happen too, because sometimes people think, oh, I have to do this for months before I would notice a difference. No, you can notice a difference in a few days. And you're like, okay, maybe I can keep going.
So tell me about the breakfast. In breakfast, I could easily see how to add fruits, right? Because you could add fruit, you could add blueberries, strawberries to your apple, to your, excuse me, to your cereal or your oatmeal. Um, how can you get some of the vegetables in on breakfast? Tell me how you
Yeah.
get veggies in on that.
I get that question a lot because the way we think about breakfast. So
Okay.
I was like, one, you think, okay, your body, you just need the food. So one thing that really throws people off, I'm like, a breakfast salad. So the
Mm-hmm.
food, the salad that you would have at lunch, you can have that at breakfast. There's no
Mm-hmm.
rules that say it has to be after 11 o'clock. I think the restaurants told us, you can only have this food after a certain hour. So people thought that way. But I just like for people's mind to open, like you don't have to wait. You can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Another way is like a stir fry, like a sweet potato hash where you're adding like bell
Mm-hmm.
peppers. I like to do like
Mm-hmm.
a tofu scramble. You can have like kale and spinach
Mm-hmm.
mixed in there, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of asparagus chopped up or broccoli, just like
Mm-hmm.
someone would do an omelet, just without the eggs and the cheese and the beef. So you
Mm-hmm.
can just mix
Mm-hmm.
that up, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just you just have to like keep your mind open on like what you can do and it's possible, and there's no necessarily rules that say you have to eat
Mm-hmm.
certain things at a certain hour, and people are like,
Absolutely.
oh well, yeah, I never thought about that.
Right.
So there you are,
Right.
you can add it
Right.
in easily.
And it's so interesting because with my job, I'm in the hospital and sometimes I don't get to eat very early. And then it's like that hour, 10, 11 o'clock. I'm like, what do I eat? And then I did like just kind of stop and did what you said, just kind of ask myself, well, why can't I have my salad now? This is what I want, right? Why do I need to wait till the 11, 12 o'clock hour to have my salad? So I started having my salad early. It's so funny you said that. Because I started having my salad early, and I found that because that day I did that, I found that my it changes the way I eat for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of an aha moment for me because it was really just born out of the fact that I think I had a C-section and then it was time to eat, but I was hungry, but it wasn't quite. It was kind of after breakfast, not quite time for lunch, and
Mm-hmm.
I had my lunch salad and kind of had have that little talk with myself like, okay, well, why are you doing this? Why is this like a mental struggle? Like just eat the salad, But
Exactly, that's it.
but that's how I discovered what you were just saying because you're right. It's so interesting how industry has shaped our mindset of what is supposedly normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, like they stop serving breakfast at a certain time, then you start lunch at this time, then you start. And so we don't have to live, our bodies do not have to live by those rules. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, you can have your veggies in the morning. And then I'm big on soups. I'm big on veggie soups because I just find them to be inexpensive and they're especially the vegetable soups, no cream or just the broth based, no
Mm-hmm.
vegetable based. And I find them to be so filling, right? Because they're so high in fiber. So it's kind of that's how I get a lot of my vegetables in. Um, a lot of time the vegetables, sometimes we're associating that with like the bread, right? Like with the carbs, because you're putting like a lettuce on a bread
Mm-hmm.
or turkey and lettuce or something. And how can we get to the point where we're not necessarily, if you not necessarily big on salads, let's say it's lunchtime, some of the choices you can make that will include the vegetables without including the carbs that some people are just not that excited about having.
So you would do things that are like heavier, you would think. So I always tell people sweet potatoes. You can do that and add in vegetables on top of that. Like people talk a loaded potato. So a loaded sweet potato,
Mhm,
you can add in
mhm,
beans and other vegetables and then actually put that in a baked sweet potato. And that's very good and very filling
mhm,
that if you don't like
mhm,
that.
mhm.
I love leafy greens. So when somebody tell me they don't like salad, I'm just like, oh goodness. But then I'm like you can do different shaved like Brussels sprouts. You can make that as the form of your base. You can do quinoa, which is a whole grain that you can add in as a filling for people. What do they call it? Warm bowls. That's what they call them. So instead of a salad, it'd be like a warm bowl. So you can put together what you would think would go in a salad, and then instead of the lettuce, you can put in like quinoa or brown rice. So people can do that too if they like that. I love doing that because that's very popular in different restaurants, and you can get different veggies added in there. So that's very good. So, but I still try to push people. The leafy greens are like the.
I love leafy greens myself, so I understand completely. And once you able, it's so funny. I get my whole family into eating it because once you start, it's really like, oh, this is actually pretty good. And not necessarily at the moment when you're first eating it the very first time, but the way you feel after. What you, when you stop eating, it, just the way you feel, just within those few days of stop eating it, you kind of just notice how your body, like you said, it's just so sluggish. So yes, I hear you on that. Very, very much so. And then for do you remember the saying when they say eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner or supper like a pauper? Is that, do you feel that that's true in
So
health, or?
So I would say yes, but I can tell people I struggle with that myself because I'm like up, going to the clinic very early in the morning. But you do want to have most of your calories during the day. Well, like when you're actually moving, you think your food is your energy. So if you're not eating most of your food at nighttime, right before you go to bed, you don't need it to go to sleep. You need less food to go to sleep. So I do try to have people focus on that. And that's why I have them try to do more of their veggies and stuff with every single meal. Because then if you really start that high in the breakfast time, you're not trying to get all that food in at dinner time. So so yeah, that makes a big difference. And then the salad, you can put the salad at nighttime. That's light and fresh and airy. Because it's not heavy. It's not something heavy on your stomach, and that's what you don't want. Because then we get the reflux and things, and your body doesn't you don't want your body digesting while you're trying to sleep. You want it like trying to, what we call detoxing while you're asleep, not digesting. So you want to try to push those calories up to the front part of the day. But like I said, dinner was always big in my house, like growing up. So I know that's a tradition for people, but just trying to change that mindset is still something to work for.
No, I hear you. I hear you. So at what point do you feel that someone who is maybe feeling that their mood is down and they're trying to influence it through diet, at what point do you feel that you would advise this person or your patient to say, you know what, you need a little bit more help than just a food or lifestyle modification, and this is something that requires more than what you're currently doing? What would be the signs that there's more that's needed?
So if they have any thoughts, one, that they're going to hurt themselves, that's like, no, we're not waiting for food. We're doing therapy. We're getting, medications and stuff like that immediately. If you are a person that feels like that you can't get up and get out of the bed, like you're just there all the time, or like you're just like going through in a permanently like fog, and you just can't seem to get out of it. And no matter what, even with trying to change your diet, you just feel like it's you just stay down, you're crying, you feel tired all the time, whatever it may be. I never say that you can't do all three at one time. I usually tell people, usually if someone comes in to me, they've tried other things first already. And if they're complaining of depression or anxiety, I'd never say we're just going to do food. That's one that because it takes a lot for people to want to come in to say that. And if you just tell them, oh, I'm just going to do food, then that's not really, that's not what they're looking for. So I add that in at the end after I talk about, oh, well, these are the medications that we can try for you. And also I want you to start seeing a therapist, because that's where the journaling comes in, trying to get rid of all that's built up over decades, because that's not going to be changed in a few weeks. And even though you add in the food, like that's going to lighten it up, it's not going to be necessarily enough. So the food is more for people that have, I would say, a very mild, like not even diagnosed with like clinical depression. That it's more people that may have like a dysthymic or something of that nature. But that would be food only. So, but if you have a diagnosis of depression, you want to really pay attention to the foods that you're eating, because in addition to your medication, in addition to your therapy, eating foods can actually help improve your mood also. Whereas you may have food that's working against your medication and against, the work you're doing with the therapy. So you want synergy with everything.
Gotcha. Okay. And what are your thoughts on caffeine and alcohol for the person who is on that, would like to pay attention to their food and their mood?
Oh, goodness. Caffeine, I would say if people like a cup of coffee in the morning, that's fine. But you don't want to use the coffee to stay awake. You don't want to use the coffee to increase your energy, because it works in the opposite way. So you don't want to do that. But I mean, there's some good benefits to coffee, but you don't want to necessarily have it. Now, if we were talking about Coca-Cola, Pepsi's caffeine, then no, we don't want to do that at all, because that's sugar, basically. Green tea has caffeine in there, but it actually has antioxidants. So that's actually a good one that I really try to get people to drink instead if they're looking for caffeine. Energy drinks, no, that causes people too anxious. That adds more to their anxiety. I would be very hesitant for people also to drink alcohol, because in my experience, most time people drink alcohol to actually try to suppress their feelings and use it as a medication, instead of just like, oh, I'm enjoying a glass of wine with, my dinner, a glass of wine with my friends. That's not usually why they're using it. They're using it because they actually need medications to help with their depression.
Those are really good points. So that maybe those as you're having that drink, just think about why you're having that drink.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I talked to a few family members about that. Like, or they use it for sleep. Because I was like, but that's not what we need to do. Like, it's not for that reason. So we just want to be careful when we use certain things in certain ways of like what's really the underlying issue, which is why the therapist is important. So that's why I always put that in there, that people want to talk with a therapist. And I can talk to you a little bit, but I'm not a trained therapist.
Gotcha. Now, are there any whole foods or vegetables that you would say you would caution against not using, that may appear healthy, and may not have the health benefit that we believe that they have?
Like a plant food?
Yeah, like anything that looks healthy. Because I know, like, for instance, I know one of the things that for me, when I was doing my research and even writing for the website, one of the things I discovered was just like coconut milk, and how it's often like, okay, it's vegan, but it's really not a very healthy choice, because
I always forget about that, because I don't do a lot of coconut, but yeah, it's so high in saturated fat that you wouldn't want that. Because when I think of plants, I'm thinking of like our flaxseed, which is good, and the leafy greens, like I talk about. But yes,
Okay.
I don't know of any other ones that come up.
Okay, or any oils that you think that, okay, just stay away from that oil, or
oh, well, I don't really like oils in general. Like, if you're going to do an oil, you can do a little bit of olive oil, but any of the other ones I wouldn't say necessarily are the best either, like canola oil or those corn oils. You don't want those, but I don't look at those as whole foods either.
Got you. I got
so
you. Okay.
So that wouldn't be a whole food. And I tell people, no, we want to try to stay away from oils, because that's just like extra fats. And most time people are trying to also manage their weight or their cholesterol. So I tell them oils are not are not the way.
I hear you. Okay. Well, we thank you, Dr. Adkins, for your time and for your knowledge and sharing your knowledge and your expertise on nutrition and mood. And I want to point out that Dr. Adkins was gracious enough to write an article for myobmd.org, and you can find that on our website. And also on our website, you can find an article that talks about stress and further articles on nutrition. So, Dr. Adkins, we thank you for your time and your expertise and your knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed talking to you today.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Straight Talk with My OBMD podcast. To learn more about this topic, visit our website at myobmd.org. Subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I can't wait to spend more time with you on our next episode of Straight Talk with My OBMD.